My husband decided I wasn't worthy of his new elite circle. He told me flat out not to show up at the company gala, the same company party I helped him build from nothing. And his family, they sided with him. For the first time in our marriage, I didn't argue. I didn't fight. I just left. I drove straight to the Oregon coast. I was watching the sunset fade over the Pacific when my phone, which I'd left in my bag, started to light up. And it didn't stop. Dozens of messages, texts from investors, panicked calls from my colleagues. Something had gone terribly, terribly wrong. It all started at 5:45 a.m. "Stand there, Jane," my husband Sean directed. He was pointing to the far corner of our bedroom. "I need to practice my investor pitch, and you're distracting me." He was already in his $1,000 designer suit, getting ready for the gala that night. I had just offered to help him rehearse, the same way I had done for 3 solid years, back when his company, Nexus, was just a crazy idea sketched on a napkin. "Actually, just leave," he said, not even looking at me. "This is for a different caliber of audience than you're used to." He turned back to the mirror, adjusting a tie I didn't recognize. "These are international venture capitalists, Jane, not your old McKinsey clients." He spat the name of my old firm like it was something dirty. "My mother will be there tonight to support me properly. Michelle understands this world." I stood in the doorway of the bedroom we'd shared for 7 years, watching him practice smiling at his own reflection. And I realized, in that one gut punch of a moment, that I had become invisible in my own marriage. It shouldn't have been a surprise. The signs had been piling up for months. Little cuts, small dismissals, a dozen paper cuts I'd explained away as stress from the Series C funding round. But standing there watching him rehearse facial expressions like an actor, I understood this wasn't stress. This was who Sean Morrison had become. Or maybe, just maybe, it was who he'd always been, hiding underneath the startup hoodies and the vulnerable moments when he'd sworn he needed me. 3 years ago, Sean couldn't even stand in front of a mirror without breaking into a cold sweat. I remember finding him in our garage, our tiny, freezing garage, at 3:00 a.m., surrounded by crumpled notebook pages. He was trying to memorize a 2-minute pitch for our first potential investor. His hands shook so badly he couldn't even hold the paper steady. I spent that entire night coaching him. I taught him breathing exercises. I helped him restructure his talking points. I recorded him on my phone over and over so he could hear how he sounded. By morning, he delivered that pitch flawlessly and secured our seed funding, $500,000, our seed funding. Now, he was dismissing my McKinsey clients like they were nothing, those same nothing clients who became Nexus's first enterprise customers, back when Sean couldn't even afford a sales team. I'd leveraged every single connection from my 5 years at that firm. I called in favors. I arranged meetings on weekends. I turned casual coffee dates into product demos. I landed 3 contracts, $2 million in recurring revenue, the money that kept Nexus alive through its first year. But apparently that contribution had been completely erased from the official narrative. "Are you still here?" Sean asked, his back still to me. He was practicing his confident CEO laugh now, the one that sounded nothing like his real laugh. His real laugh was dorky, a little nasal, and ended with a small snort. I hadn't heard it in 6 months. I walked back to the kitchen, my bare feet silent on the cold marble floors. Floors we'd picked out together when we signed the lease for this penthouse. Back then, Sean had insisted we needed a place that would impress investors. I'd agreed, even though the rent consumed nearly half our budget. Now I realized I hadn't been building a home. I'd been furnishing his stage. My phone buzzed. A text from Queen Chin, my former McKinsey colleague, who is now Nexus's head of operations. I'd recommended her for the job when Sean needed someone, his words, he could trust. The message had no words. Just a screenshot that made my stomach twist into a knot. It was an internal budget document for tonight's gala, the kind of detailed spreadsheet I used to prepare for Sean when he was still learning how to manage company finances. There, under a section labeled Strategic Considerations, was a line item. Attendance optimization, spousal attendance limited to board members and C-suite executives meeting specific criteria. And right below that, a note. J. Morrison does not align with current corporate positioning. Refer to family advisory input. Family advisory input. That was code for Michelle and George Morrison, Sean's parents, the same people who'd spent the first year of Nexus calling it Sean's expensive hobby and suggesting he go back to law school. They'd only changed their tune when the Series B funding hit, and suddenly their son was worth $20 million on paper. Now they were advising him on which spouse met the criteria. It's a special kind of betrayal, isn't it? Being erased from your own life. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been made to feel less than by the very people you helped build up, hit that like button right now. And if you're not subscribed, you're missing out on the community that gets it. You're just proving their point that it's okay to be an outsider. Don't be an outsider. Hit subscribe right now. I thought about our old garage office where Nexus was literally born, the card table we used as a desk, the whiteboard covered in my handwriting because Sean's was illegible when he got excited, the air mattress we'd crash on when we were too exhausted to drive home after 18-hour coding sessions. I'd written half the initial platform code myself while Sean focused on the architecture. My contributions were baked into every single line of the product that had made him a millionaire. The coffee maker beeped, pulling me back. Through the window, Seattle was waking up. Somewhere in one of those downtown glass towers, investors were getting ready for tonight, ready to pour more millions into Nexus Technologies. They'd shake Sean's hand, toast his vision, and never know that the company's first algorithm, the one that caught their attention in the first place, was something I developed after Sean had hit a wall and spent 3 days convinced the entire project was doomed. My phone rang. It was Queen. "Jane, I'm so sorry," she said immediately. "I just saw the final attendee list. I can't believe they're doing this to you." "It's strategic," I heard myself say, my voice sounding dead and hollow. I was echoing Sean's corporate speak. Apparently, I don't project the right image for international VCs. "That's complete garbage, and you know it," Queen snapped. "You built half that company. Your connections brought in the initial revenue. Hell, Jane, you taught Sean how to read a balance sheet through the bedroom door." I could hear Sean in the other room, his voice carrying that fake, booming confidence he'd learned from his executive coach. "Nexus Technologies represents the future of integrated platform solutions," he declared to his reflection. Michelle Morrison's influence was all over it. She'd been grooming him for months, transforming her nervous programmer son into someone who could navigate country clubs and charity galas, someone whose wife needed to meet specific criteria. "Queen," I said quietly, "does everyone at the company know I'm not invited?" The pause on the line told me everything. "The executive team knows," she finally said. "Sean announced it at yesterday's leadership meeting. Said it was a strategic decision made in consultation with the board and family advisors." There it was again. Family advisors. I'd been evaluated by a committee, and I'd been found lacking. The humiliation wasn't private anymore. It was corporate policy. By 2 p.m., I couldn't stand the silence of that penthouse anymore. I dressed carefully, my best business attire, the charcoal suit I'd worn to our Series B closing, and I drove to Nexus headquarters. The building we'd moved into last year gleamed in the afternoon sun, all glass and steel ambition. Marcus, the security guard who'd known me since we were working out of a beat-up co-working space, looked uncomfortable when I walked in. "Afternoon, Mrs. Morrison," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. He knew, too. I walked past Sean's new assistant. She looked up, and her face went pale, and straight to his corner office. Through the glass walls, I could see him, gesturing wildly at a presentation for 3 men in expensive suits. 20 minutes later, the investors filed out. Sean stood in his doorway, his expression impossible to read. "We need to talk," I said. He stepped aside, closing the door behind me. The office smelled like his new cologne, something French his mother had gifted him. He walked to his desk, putting the massive oak barrier between us. "You came here to make a scene?" he asked, adjusting the Hermes tie Michelle had given him. The tie I'd watched him unwrap like it was a holy relic, his acceptance into the club. "I came here for an explanation, a real one." He sighed, that condescending sigh. "Jane, these investors, they're Silicon Valley elite. International. They expect a certain level of sophistication. You're brilliant at strategy, I'll give you that. But this is about cultural fit." "Cultural fit," I repeated, my voice dangerously low. "I have an MBA from Northwestern. I worked at McKinsey for 5 years. What culture am I not fitting into?" "It's not that simple," he said, turning to look out his window at the Seattle skyline. "These people sense things, subtle cues, the way someone holds a wine glass, the references they make, whether they summer in the Hamptons or Martha's Vineyard. You just don't speak their language." "I speak 3 languages fluently," I shot back, "including the coding languages that built the platform they're investing in." "That's not what I mean, and you know it." I knew exactly what he meant. I remembered that horrible dinner at his parents' estate last month. Michelle had invited her country club friend Victoria, whose husband ran a private equity firm. I'd walked into the drawing room, yes, they actually called it that, to hear Michelle saying, "And this is Sean's wife, Jane. She used to help with marketing, back when the company was still small. Used to. Small. Every word a tiny, poisoned dart." Before I could even answer, Michelle had steered me away from the men, over to a group of women discussing a charity luncheon. "Jane would love to hear about the fundraising committee," she'd announced, as if my strategic consulting background evaporated the second her son's valuation hit 9 figures. I stood there, trapped in a conversation about floral centerpieces, while the men retired to George's study to discuss the future of the company I helped build. "Your mother made it clear last month that I don't belong," I said to his reflection in the window. He turned around, his face set. "My family understands this environment. They've been part of it for generations. They only want what's best for the company." What's best for the company, or what's best for their image? "Sometimes those are the same thing," he said. "Look, my family agrees that sometimes the most supportive thing a spouse can do is step back. This isn't personal. Your family agrees. When did Michelle and George become the board of directors for our marriage?" His jaw tightened. "Mom says your presence might send the wrong signal. These people expect a certain type of presentation. A certain type of wife, you mean?" He didn't deny it. He just looked at his new Patek Philippe watch. "The gala starts in 4 hours. I need to prepare." And that was it. Dismissal. As clean and cold as a termination letter. I just looked at him. This polished stranger who now viewed me as a liability. "You're right," I said quietly. "I don't fit into this world you've created." I walked to the door, then turned back. "Your parents must be so proud. You've finally become exactly what they always wanted. Someone who measures human worth in terms of strategic value. I bet half of you are thinking, I'd never let that happen to me. But you're sitting there, watching this story, instead of living your own life. And you haven't even subscribed. What's holding you back? Are you afraid of what you might find out about yourself? If you're not subscribing, go to the comments right now and tell everyone why you're just a passive observer. Why are you just watching? I'm waiting to read the excuses. The drive back to the penthouse took 12 minutes. I spent them making a mental list. By the time I parked, I already had vacation rentals pulled up on my phone. Cannon Beach, Oregon. A little cottage on the coast, available immediately. The photos showed rough wooden walls, mismatched furniture, and an unobstructed view of the Pacific. Everything Sean would consider beneath our status. I packed, methodically. I chose the clothes Sean had always criticized. The comfortable jeans he said looked too casual. The university sweatshirts he claimed weren't appropriate. The sneakers he'd literally tried to throw away because they weren't some designer brand. Each item felt like reclaiming a tiny piece of myself. I left my set of keys on the marble counter, right next to the engraved invitation for tonight's gala, the one that bore only Sean's name. No note, no dramatic goodbye. Just absence. Let him explain that to his strategic advisors. The drive out of Seattle felt like exhaling after holding my breath for 3 years. In the rearview mirror, the city's skyline, all those glass towers full of people calculating each other's worth, grew smaller and smaller. 4 hours later, I turned down a gravel road on the Oregon coast. Patty, the owner, stood on the porch, wearing paint-splattered overalls. "You must be Jane," she said, her smile holding zero judgment. "You look exactly like someone who needs to disappear for a while." She handed me an old-fashioned key and pointed to a bottle of red wine. "Local vineyard," she said. "For whatever you're escaping or celebrating, sometimes they're the same thing." That night, I sat on the worn-out couch listening to the ocean. No city sounds, no email alerts, no Sean practicing his fake laugh in the next room. I turned my phone to airplane mode and shoved it into the bottom of my suitcase. I spent the next 3 days just being. I woke up with the sun. I walked the beach until my legs ached. I read actual books, the ones I'd bought years ago but never opened because there was always another pitch deck to review, another financial model to build. On the third morning, Patty joined me on the deck. "You have the look," she said, not glancing up from her sketch pad, "of someone recalculating their entire life." I let out this bitter laugh. My husband decided I wasn't sophisticated enough for his new social circle. Specifically, I don't meet the criteria for his company's investor gala, the company I helped build. Patty's pencil paused. She looked at me, really looked at me. Let me guess, he got successful and suddenly you weren't the right kind of accessory anymore. His parents agree I might send the wrong signal to international investors. Patty snorted. You know what I love about the ocean? She said, returning to her sketch. It doesn't care about your net worth. The waves crash the same for billionaires and artists. The tide doesn't check your portfolio before it comes in. She was right. The Pacific Ocean didn't care that I'd been deemed unsophisticated by the Morrison family. It just kept being itself, vast, honest, and completely unimpressed. That night, I found an old journal and started writing. At first, I wrote about Sean, about the humiliation. But then other things emerged. The photography business I'd dreamed of starting, the novel I'd outlined but never written, the teaching position I'd turned down because Sean said we needed to focus on our company. Except it had never been our company. It had been his company, his dream, his success. And somewhere in all those 18-hour days, I'd forgotten that I once had dreams too. Dreams that had nothing to do with IPOs or market valuations. On Saturday evening, I sat on the deck. October 7th, 7:15 p.m. 400 miles away, in Seattle, the doors to the Fairmont Olympics Grand Ballroom would be opening. The Nexus Technologies Investor Gala. I knew, because I'd toured that space with Sean 6 months ago. He'd grabbed my hand and whispered, "This is it, Jane, our victory celebration." I could picture it perfectly. The floral arrangements from the vendor I researched, the signature cocktails I suggested based on the German investors' preferences I had discovered, every detail bearing my invisible fingerprint, while my actual presence was deemed inappropriate. My phone sat on the table, still on airplane mode. But curiosity, it's a terrible thing. What if he needed me? At 7:43 p.m., I turned on my phone. The screen erupted. It didn't just buzz, it became one continuous screaming vibration as messages flooded in faster than the device could even process them. 26 missed calls, 42 texts, 17 emails marked urgent. Queen's name dominated the missed calls. Her text started professional and descended into pure chaos. Jane, please call when you get this. Something's happened with the German investors. Sean needs you to call immediately. Call me now. Everything is imploding. Where are you? This is insane. The investors are walking out. And then, a text that made me sit bolt upright. A text from Michelle Morrison. In 7 years, my mother-in-law had never contacted me directly. She communicated through Sean. But there it was. Urgent family emergency. You must call immediately. I called Queen first. She answered before the first ring finished. Thank God, she gasped. I could hear chaos in the background, raised voices, chairs scraping, someone shouting about damage control. Queen, slow down. What happened? The Germans happened, she said, her voice shaking. The due diligence documents. Oh God, Jane. You know that new junior analyst Sean hired, Kevin? He was assigned to compile the due diligence package for the German investors. Sean told him to be thorough, to include everything. My stomach tightened. Everything? Everything, Jane. All the internal comms about tonight's gala, the budgets, the email chains, including the strategic considerations document, including the note about you, including Sean's email to the board where he wrote, she paused, I could hear papers rustling, where he wrote, my wife's presence might send the wrong signal about our corporate sophistication. Her attendance would not align with our positioning. The wineglass slipped from my hand and shattered on the deck. The Germans saw it, Queen whispered. Denzel Hoffman, the managing partner of Rain Technic Ventures, the one controlling $2 billion in assets. She was reviewing the documents during cocktail hour. Sean was in the middle of his big presentation, talking about Nexus's values and corporate culture, when she stood up. She stood up during the presentation. In front of everyone, Jane, 200 people, all the major investors, the entire board. She held up her tablet and said, I'm not exaggerating. She said, Mr. Morrison, could you explain why your wife, who according to your own company history helped build this platform, has been excluded from tonight's event for failing to meet sophistication criteria? I sank into the chair. The room went dead silent, Queen continued. Sean tried to stammer, said it was taken out of context, a mutual decision. And then Denzel said, God, everyone heard it. We don't invest in companies whose leadership treats people as strategic liabilities. If this is how you value the person who helped build your company, how will you treat other stakeholders when it becomes convenient? She said that in front of everyone, into the microphone. Then she closed her portfolio, stood up, and walked out. Her entire team followed. 6 other international firms left with them. The press is here, Jane. Tech bloggers, financial reporters. Someone already posted it on Twitter. It's trending. Sean must be... He's destroyed, Queen said simply. He tried to continue the presentation, but his voice was shaking. Michelle tried to do damage control, but someone leaked the whole due diligence package to TechCrunch. The headline is, Nexus CEO excludes wife from gala for lacking corporate sophistication. Through the phone, I heard a door slam and Sean's voice, high and strained, shouting about containment strategies. Then Michelle's voice, shrill, demanding someone fix this. I should go, Queen said. But Jane, that German investor, Denzel, before she left, she walked right past Sean and said loud enough for everyone to hear, success that requires diminishing those who helped you achieve it isn't success. It's just ego with a business plan. This is the moment, the turning point, the karma, and trust me, the fallout is even worse. You think you know what happens next, but you don't. Hit that subscribe button right now, or the algorithm will make sure you never see the end of this story. You'll be left wondering, just like Sean was, standing alone in that empty ballroom. Don't let that be you. Subscribe. Queen hung up. My phone immediately lit up with news alerts. Nexus Technologies stock plunges in after-hours trading. German investment firm withdraws from Nexus deal. Breaking. Multiple investors exit Nexus Gala following document leak. My phone rang. Sean's photo, the one from our wedding where he looked so young and grateful. I let it go to voicemail. I listened to the messages. Sean's first message, his CEO voice. Jane, we have a situation that requires immediate management. There's been a misunderstanding. Call me back so we can coordinate our response. This affects both of us. Second message, 12 minutes later. The cracks showing. Jane, I know you're getting these. The German investors have withdrawn. The press is involved. We need to present a unified front. Please call me. Third message. Pure panic. The board is meeting right now. They're talking about my resignation. 3 more firms just pulled out. That's $280 million in commitments gone. You have to help me. Tell them it was your choice not to attend. Fourth message. Stephanie, please. TechCrunch posted the story. It's everywhere. They're saying I've destroyed the company's reputation. Do you understand what you've done? The fifth message was barely recognizable as Sean. The stock is down 38%. 38%. I'm begging you, please. I moved to the next voicemail. Sean's father, George. His voice was cold, threatening. Jane, this is George Morrison. I don't know what game you're playing, but you're destroying our family's reputation. If you don't immediately release a statement supporting Sean, I will pursue every legal option available. This vindictive destruction ends now. Vindictive destruction. As if I had done anything, except leave when I was told I wasn't wanted. The next message made me laugh. Michelle, trying to sound warm but just sounding condescending. Jane, dear, surely we can handle this like adults. Yes, there were some unfortunate misunderstandings, but that's no reason to let Sean's career burn. Surely you can put aside your feelings for the sake of the family reputation. We've always welcomed you. She paused. Despite the differences in our backgrounds, don't let pride destroy everything. Even now, even while begging for my help, she couldn't resist that one last dig. Then, a call from David Winters, the chairman of the board. His voicemail was the worst of all. Jane, David Winters here. I'm calling with a proposal. The board is prepared to offer you a consulting contract, $200,000 for 6 months, minimal duties. In exchange, you'd sign an NDA and release a statement clarifying that you chose to skip tonight's event. This protects everyone's interests. A bribe. They were trying to buy my silence, to pay me $200,000 to agree that I was exactly what they'd claimed. Unnecessary, unsophisticated, and better off absent. My phone was a dumpster fire of media requests. Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg. Then, one last voicemail from Sean. His voice was hollow, defeated. Jane, the other investors are leaving. All of them. The gala is ending 2 hours early. Mom and Dad left without saying goodbye. I'm standing in an empty ballroom that cost us $40,000 to rent. Please, just tell me what you want. What will it take for you to help me? What did I want? I sat there on that dark deck, the shattered wine glass at my feet. He was asking me to help him. His family was threatening me, bribing me, and condescending to me. They all expected me to do something, to engage, to negotiate, to help them manage the consequences of their own decisions. I looked at the phone, glowing with 37 voicemails. I pressed the power button and held it until the screen went dark. Then I went into the cottage kitchen, found a small screwdriver, and I took out the battery. The physical separation felt final. It wasn't just airplane mode, it was a deliberate barrier. I chose peace. But I know some of you watching live for the drama. I see you. You've made it this far, you've soaked in all the juicy details, and you still haven't hit subscribe. You're just like the reporters, waiting for the next piece of the train wreck. Prove me wrong. Hit subscribe. Or, if you're really committed to just being a spectator, go to the comments and tell me why you refuse to be part of the community. I'll read every single comment. Around midnight, Patty appeared, carrying a thermos. She looked at my face, at the dismembered phone on the table, and at the empty wine bottle. Bad news or good news? She asked. I'm not sure yet, I said. My husband's company just collapsed. At a gala I wasn't invited to. Investors walked out. His career is probably over. And I'm sitting here feeling, not sadness. Relief, Patty said simply. You're feeling relief. And I burst into tears. I should feel terrible, I whispered. But I just keep thinking about how quiet it is here, how the ocean doesn't care. Patty told me her own story, how she'd been a high-powered lawyer at a white shoe firm in Manhattan. She'd just won them their biggest case, a 9-figure pharmaceutical trial. The managing partner called her in, and she thought it was about making partner. Instead, she said, he told me I wasn't partnership material, lacked the polish and presentation their clients expected. Too intense. He suggested I'd be happier at a smaller firm. After you won them millions, I said. After I won them millions, she confirmed. So I walked out that day, drove across the country until I found this place, and I never went back. Did they call you? I asked. Patty smiled. For months. The case I'd won started having complications. They offered me senior partner, my name on the door. I never answered. Last I heard, the client left the firm entirely. You know what I learned? She said, leaning in. Silence is the most powerful response to people who fundamentally misunderstand your value. They expect anger or hurt or negotiation. They are prepared for that. But silence forces them to sit with their decisions without your participation. My dead phone sat on the table between us. I thought about Denzel's parting words. It's just ego with a business plan. It's already being shared everywhere, I told Patty. He's probably being eviscerated on social media. And how does that make you feel? She asked. I thought about it. Vindicated isn't quite right. It's more like watching the natural consequences play out, without my interference, like I finally stopped trying to manage outcomes that were never mine to manage. Patty raised her mug. To natural consequences, she toasted. I stayed at Cannon Beach for 11 days. On the 11th morning, I woke up with a new feeling. Clarity. The silence had done its work. It was time to go back. I drove back to Seattle. The city's skyline emerged from the rain like a familiar stranger. Our building's parking garage told the first story. I pulled into my spot, and Sean's Tesla was gone. The space next to mine was just empty concrete. The penthouse felt abandoned. His toiletries were gone. His closet was half empty. He'd taken only what he needed and left the rest. On the kitchen counter, I found a single envelope. Divorce papers. The reason? Irreconcilable differences. No note, no explanation. He'd communicated his final decision through his attorney. The next morning, I met with Brenda Wright, the attorney Patty had recommended. I've reviewed the filing, Brenda said, but I thought you should know what's really been happening at Nexus. She pulled out a folder, a graph of Nexus's stock. The line fell off a cliff. A 40% decline in valuation, she said. 3 board members have resigned, including your father-in-law, George. They lost not just the German investment, but 2 others. Total capital withdrawal? Approximately $400 million. Sean's position? I asked. Still CEO, technically, but he's a figurehead. The board stripped him of key authorities. And his parents? They withdrew their financial backing 2 days after the gala. Michelle told everyone at her country club they needed to protect their other investments from the scandal. The irony was staggering. The woman so concerned about me sending the wrong signal had sent the clearest one of all by abandoning her own son. "There's more," Brenda said. 43 employees have left in the last 10 days, including most of the original engineering team that built the platform with you. Later that day, I met Queen for coffee. She looked exhausted. "It's dying, Jane," she said, blunt as always. "It's rotting from the inside. The board is actively demanding Sean's resignation, and he's just confused. He genuinely doesn't get it. He actually said in a meeting that this was all just a misunderstanding that got blown out of proportion. He thinks this is a PR problem. He doesn't understand that people saw exactly who he is and decided they don't want to do business with that person." As she was speaking, my phone buzzed. An email. The sender's name made me pause. Denzel Hoffman, the German investor. The subject line, "A conversation worth having." I opened it. "Ms. Morrison, I hope this finds you well. I've been following your career and contributions to Nexus, and I believe you have been systematically erased from a narrative you helped create. I would like to discuss funding a consulting firm under your leadership. Anyone who helped build a company from nothing while being diminished deserves the chance to build something where their value is recognized." I read it twice. Then I showed it to Queen. She read it, and she started to laugh. This wild, hysterical sound of pure relief. "Oh my God, Jane! Denzel Hoffman wants to fund you!" Somewhere across the city, Sean was in his glass office making desperate calls that went unanswered. His empire was crumbling. And here, in a small coffee shop, I was just offered the chance to build something new. Something where my value wouldn't need defending, because it would be the foundation. I realized, in that moment, that the most elegant response to being erased is to become impossible to ignore. 6 months later, I stood in my new office, Morrison Strategic Consulting. I'd kept Sean's last name, not for him, but because there was a certain poetry in building something successful under the same name he'd tried to exclude from his achievements. Denzel was true to her word. She provided the seed funding. Within 2 months, I had 3 major clients: a female-founded biotech firm, a fintech startup that needed help scaling without losing its soul, a nonprofit bringing tech education to underserved communities. On my desk, I keep a photograph I took that last night at Cannon Beach, the sunset, all gold and purple. A reminder that the ocean is indifferent to human drama. News of Sean still reaches me. He's still CEO of a company that's a ghost of what it was. And he got engaged to a woman named Vanessa Hartley, the daughter of a prominent Seattle family. Michelle was quoted in the announcement, describing Vanessa as, "from a good family who truly understands our world." The subtext so obvious it was practically text. He got exactly what he wanted, the right wife, the title, his mother's approval. But he leads a company that has lost its soul. His parents, I heard, quietly withdrew from several country club committees. Their social currency devalued. I learned something on that beach. The most elegant revenge isn't a strategy. It's not about watching someone's world collapse. It's simpler. It's building a life so firmly grounded in your own values that other people's judgments become completely irrelevant. It's finding peace in the distance between who they decided you were and who you actually became. It is the freedom to build without performing, to succeed without diminishing others, and to find peace in simply being enough exactly as I was. If this story of quiet triumph resonated with you, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Jane chose silence, removing her phone battery while Sean's world imploded 400 miles away. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. And if you made it all the way to the end, don't you dare click away without subscribing. Don't miss more compelling stories of resilience and reinvention. Subscribing tells the world you stand with the builders, not the takers. Hit that notification bell so you never, ever miss an upload. Don't make the mistake of being left behind.